Critiquing Alan Seinfeld's critique of The Merchant of Venice without being heterosexist. Week 4, Learning Activity 5, Critical Lens Project. Critiquing Alan Seinfeld's critique of The Merchant of Venice without being heterosexist is ironic in the fact that Mr. Seinfeld is both homosexual and Jewish. This essay will show how Mr. Seinfeld is a racist unto himself. He speaks of Shakespeare's play as being prejudiced in the time of its day. This paper intends to show through some research and statements Mr. Seinfeld made that he does not have an inkling of knowing what he is talking about. What he intends to say has shown not that he is speaking of homosexual finds as opposed to heterosexual findings. Using remarks of a few other critiques and this author's own thoughts, it will be proven that Mr. Seinfeld uses more homosexual thoughts and comments, disproving his own critique. A heterosexist is one who is discriminated or prejudiced against homosexuals. It might be interesting to note that this word's first use was in 1972, Merriam-Webster.com 2017. Up to that point, it was all slang and vulgarities against those who had different sexual beliefs. Alan Seinfeld, 1941 to present, is a professor of English at the University of Sussex and is now a professor emeritus there. As this essay's author, it is felt that Mr. Seinfeld's critique of The Merchant of Venice is as prejudiced as a gay man would have to be no matter what his negative claim as such would be considered. Why do the Jewish people find it necessary to complain? Is it racist? Because Mr. Seinfeld is Jewish himself, there will naturally be complaints of racism because one of the characters in the play is Jewish, and Shakespeare has given the job of moneylender and loan shark and tightwad. Mr. Seinfeld is quick to point out that Shakespeare might be making a joke of reversibility concerning racism and the foolish acts of those Christians. The word Christian is used several times in the play, but the word Jew is not. Shows just how very flawed their system was at the time. Over J. 2017. Some criticisms have said that because of a 1994 newspaper article that Shakespeare, who was all embracing of humanity and its issues, that there were several statements in The Merchant of Venice that were insulting to the Jewish people. That the Jewish man's name was Shylock, which in this author's opinion relates to a slang word shyster, is a rumored sarcastic vision of all Jewish people. Having been raised in the South in the 1950s and 60s, which could be referenced almost as the Old South by this author, as racist to anyone other than white America. It is simply to note Mount Mr. Seinfeld's contentions from both a gay and Jewish convention. Mr. Seinfeld spoke of ancient Greece and Rome as being a place where homosexuality was embraced, so in fact. Shakespeare wanted his play to be not only textual but factual as well, but thought that in ancient Greece and Rome where homosexuality flourished, that it was the same as then as it is today that an older man would devote himself to a relatively casual and especially pampered young man because since he is older, it would make him feel really good and proud of himself because of having a older relationship. Maybe because he had not experienced such a relationship himself, Mr. Seinfeld could not express such a statement regarding the happiness of an older-younger relationship status. The older man gets the satisfaction of feeling great because he has a younger man to be proud of himself, while the younger man has the pride to know that he has an older man doing everything he can in his power to please the younger. It also might be stated that the younger could relate to the older for the experience value and the older relation to the younger for his experience too, and to keep in tune with up-to-date culture. Accordingly, Seinfeld states that moving out of your place is severely punished. That might be true today also, except if the person has been moved severely out of his normal living style. He would have to have had, or who does have, a rare and special talent that can be taught or viewed by the elegant down to the damned and be valued as such by everyone. In this author's opinion, Seinfeld seems to want to speak more of the homo-hetero influence than he does of Shakespeare, even if he is including a lot of talk about concerning Shakespeare. He speaks of male-male relations, fear of homosexuality, cross-dressing, a man's man, and being interested in men. This author doesn't think it was necessary to dwell on these facts because Shakespeare wanted his plays, poetry, and prose to not only humanly factual but historically factual also. An intriguing thought, therefore, is that in early modern England and early modern America, same-sex relations were not terribly important, but it wouldn't be fun if such scenarios were freighted with the anxieties that people experience today. Since this author is attending a Christian university, it should be noted that in the Bible, Leviticus 18:22, "Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is an abomination." King James Bible Online 2017. This is not something a good Christian would consider. The subject of homosexual activity should be condoned, abandoned, and considered a taboo subject, but also knowingly in the fact that God loves all his children, no matter what their race, creed, or religion might be to them or others. He will forgive them of their sins if they come to him for forgiveness. It must also be noted that Shakespeare wrote a lot about a lot of subjects, both controversial and non-controversial. He wrote what he felt was needed to be important to him and that he could poke fun at a subject or get his opinion stated without worrying about the laws of the time by being so elegant in all his doings and writings. Mr. Seinfeld has denied that knowledge by being unknowingly self-concerned. In my opinion, it must also be considered that Shakespeare wrote about a lot of controversial subjects. The Merchant of Venice touches on homosexuality, racism, and even slavery, all subjects of controversy yesterday and today. References are listed below.